Hey, welcome to Cape Cod Church. We're so excited you decided to join us today. If you're not super familiar with Cape Cod Church, check us out online at capecodchurch.com or follow us on social media at Cape Cod Church. In the meantime, enjoy this message from our current series, Outsiders.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. I'm gonna make a difference, gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. See the kids in the streets, not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs? A summer disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man show. They follow each other on the wind, you know, 'cause you got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know. And I'm starting with the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize there are some with no, not a nickel to loan. Could it be really me pretending that I'm not alone? Or willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart in a washed out dream. They follow the pattern of the wind to see, 'cause you got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. And I'm starting with the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to change his ways. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. And I'm starting with the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to make a change. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a. I'm starting with the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. You gotta get it right while you got the time. If you close your heart, then you close your mind. Gonna make a change. I'm gonna start with me. Oh yeah, gonna make a change. Feel good. Gonna make a change. Make a
Al Porter getting high on the register. Holy smokes. Oh, man. Such an interesting message wrapped up in that song. I'm looking at the man in the mirror, gonna make a change. So parables are mirrors. when you read through the parables that Jesus told, they're always meant to be a bit of a mirror, of a reflection, and they're mirrors for us. They're meant to be sneaky and a little bit sly, and they get in your face, and they show you what is and what could be. That's the purpose of a parable. And that's what Jesus is doing in this parable. He is putting the mirror up in front of the people in ways they weren't fully ready to see. You remember, we began this last week, and if you're new to this story, this parable of the Samaritan we call good, and let me set the stage for you. Jesus is talking to a group of his followers, his disciples. There's 70 some of them assembled, and it seems like in context, in the middle of that conversation, this man stands up, and he's a lawyer. He's a religious lawyer. So he's a lawyer who's an expert in religious law and enforcing it on other people's lives. That should make you nervous. And so he stands up and he says, so I have a question for you. And Jesus then flips the question around because he says, yes, he says, love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And he says, go and do this and live. And the man knows he's not exactly doing that well at the love your neighbor part. So he says, who exactly is my neighbor? And he's trying to limit the pool down to, a manageable group of people that he feels like he can afford to love. So Jesus tells a story, and we jumped into this last week. Jesus tells the story of a Jewish man who's traveling down this road from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he is beaten and robbed and left like a corpse in the ditch, half dead, it says. And then it tells us that along comes a priest from the temple, like a religious leader. He's also traveling, it seems, from Jerusalem to Jericho. And that's where we pick up the story, because so in this parable, in this mirror, there is it's really the story of what good looks like. I think we've established that. But I think it's also something else, and this is why the story is so tense for us. It's also the story of what it costs to be good. See, we think like good is like, it's good and it'll come naturally. But the point of the story is that everybody wants to be good, but good's not as easy as we thought. And so he gives us really, if we could, three separate characters or sets of characters that tell us a little bit of what it costs to be good. And the first one comes right here on the side of the road in the middle of Jesus' story. Luke chapter 10 and verse 31 is where we pick up if you're reading along, and if not, I've got the verses up here on the screen. It says, by chance, a priest, the priest comes along. And when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. And so somehow in this story, he sees him with enough distance that he can divert his course around him. You know what I mean, right? You can just like make it look like you're just a natural path. But he's going around this man. He's keeping a safe distance. But Jesus isn't done yet. In the next verse, it says a temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there. So the temple assistant's like the the associate priests, the associate pastors, the people who work there. Like he's not leaving anybody. These are all Levites. And by the way, they've been working, it seems, in Jerusalem where the temple was, and they've finished their week of work, and now they're heading back for their time off. They're traveling to where many of them lived in Jericho. And it says that a temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. So we look at this story, it's like shocking to us, like who does this, right? Like, because everyone in the room right now is thinking, I would never do that. Like, it wouldn't be me. I would absolutely be there helping out. And I don't even actually doubt that. Jesus is telling the story in some part for effect. But we should recognize this. When Jesus said that the priest saw a man half dead lying in a ditch, so he walked around him, nobody was surprised. Like, they didn't look and go, oh, like you would. Like, if this was about Pastor Ben and it was in the front page of the Cape Cod Times, you'd be like, I am so disappointed in him. But they were like, ah. And when the Levite did it, they're like, I get it, because the job of the priest and the Levite was to stay clean, ritually clean. They were born into this. They were part of the tribe of Levi. This was and their job was to stay clean by keeping the rules, and one of the main rules was not to touch a dead body. And by the way, half dead looks dead. Or at least you can make a strong case for it. I mean, oh. Is he dead? I think he's dead. You see any movement? I don't see any movement. I think he's dead. So here's the thing. There was actually a process whereby if a priest or a Levite touched a dead body, they could become clean again. It was a ritual, a ceremonial cleansing. But it took 7 days of quarantine. Anybody been quarantined for 14 days lately? Right? You're avoiding that like the plague. Like, oh, no. So he's walking and he sees them and he's thinking, I just got done working the last week. I got a week of family, a week off. I got my time. I don't want to spend it quarantined. I think he's dead. He looks dead. And he walks around. You see, faith and love get complicated. So we simplify. We simplify faith into a list of rules. Just do that, and do that, and do that, and you're good. I didn't touch a dead body. I thought he was dead. No, it's not my fault. I thought he was dead. I'm keeping the rules. But Jesus' law of love it's messy. See, rules are simple, and love is messy. Have you discovered that? Like, rules say, well, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I didn't do this, this, and this. So I'm good, right? But that's the simplified version of our faith. And Jesus is introducing this law of love, which is messy. And it had always been there. They just weren't living it out. And he's like, if you love someone, you don't get to simply say, well, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I didn't do this. Like, love is messy. And it's hard, right? Folks, this is why we make people make promises before they get married. Right? We do it. We say, you're going to take these vows. And what are vows? They're just promises. And we're going to invite all of your friends so you can say it in front of them and they can be witnesses. And then what do? We stand up and this, like a pastor or a justice of the peace stands in front of you and they say, okay, here we go. This is going to be really hard. But when you tell a young couple in love that it's going to be really hard, they don't believe you. Right? Until they're married, then they believe you. But before they're married, they're like, this is easy. I love him. He loves me. We'll never fight. Honestly, true story. Tammy and I never had a fight while we were dating. Ever. Zero. I was on my best behavior. And then we got married. That's another story and another message. So we make them take promises. We stand up there and we say things like, in sickness or in health. Why? Because when you're sick, you're miserable. Like nobody wants to be around you. You're your worst version of yourself, right? And then we say for better or for worse. And what we should say is for better or for worse and for worse and for worse and for worse. Because it's really, really hard. And when we say it, they're just like, oh, that sounds good. And people have been saying this for hundreds of years. It's awesome, right? And we're like, no, there's a reason you're saying this because this is hard. This thing of living it out, it's not a simple list. And this is what Jesus is saying. In Matthew 5, Jesus, in a powerfully difficult moment, says, listen, you have heard that it said, do not murder. See, that's the list. Check. Because I've never murdered anybody. I just want to say that right here. But Jesus said, but I say, if you're angry with someone. Now it's like, come on, Jesus. Like, angry? I won't tell you everything else he said because but he's wrestling it to the ground and he's saying, listen, this law of love is complicated and it's messy. And here's what I'm saying is that God's law never gets in the way of God's love. His law of love that he's called us to, it doesn't contradict his law. We never get to pit one against the other and say, well, I'm keeping the simple. See, the cost, it's the cost of simple. I don't get to simplify faith down to this list of 5 things. I have to wrestle with the muddiness of what did those vows mean? Like for better and for worse. What does that mean? It means this, right? We're wrestling with, and it's the cost of simple. Sometimes the cost of being good is giving up just this checklist of simple and just saying, I'm gonna find a way to love you. So Jesus next gets to the character that the story is sort of written about, and he says in verse 33, then a despised Samaritan. It's important that word despised. He's setting the stage, right? He said the despised Samaritan comes along, the mortal enemies, the one this series is all about, right? The animosity between the Samaritans and the Jewish people was deep and hundreds of years old. The despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. And going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. And then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. Like right there, like this guy, he wins the story, right? He goes down, he cleans out the wounds, he pours in some alcohol to disinfect it. He lifts him up. He puts him on his donkey, and he walks beside the wounded man. And he takes him to an inn where he takes care of him. The next day, he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I am here. I'll pay whatever the cost is. So for a moment, this story was about moral obligation, right? The priest didn't do what he was supposed to do. The temple assistant didn't do what he was supposed to do. Moral obligation. And then the Samaritan comes along and he does what they should have done. He fulfills the moral obligation. But then very quickly it goes from moral obligation to moral exaggeration. Like who does this? Like, okay, you lift him up, you put him on your donkey, and you say, hey, do you have any family in Jericho? Where are you going? Where can I drop you off? But the story doesn't go that way. Jesus is telling, this is Jesus' story, and so he tells a story of moral exaggeration. And he tells a story of a Samaritan who takes him to the city and gives him a blank check of grace. Like, hey, he checks him into the inn, he rides on his donkey, he cleans him up, and then he has to go somewhere, so he says to the innkeeper, hey, just take care of him, and whatever it costs, I'll pay it. Does that make anybody else nervous? Like I'm like, oh, what if he raids the mini fridge or, right? You know, some extra room service. Like how there's nothing in this story about how this bill gets paid. There's everything in this story about a man who is willing to be taken advantage of. I think that's the tension in this piece, is that there's a cost here. Like this Samaritan is willing to step out of himself and to lose. Like there's nowhere in the story where it gets even. There's nowhere where, in the next chapter, the man comes back and he repays everything and the story goes swimmingly along and the Samaritan lives happily ever after. There's nothing in this story about that. And I think this is a good place for us to rest in this passage with the cost of being taken advantage of. Because sometimes the cost of being good is that you're going to be taken advantage of. It's not going to be fair. And you're not going to win. You're going to be good. You're going to give. You're going to sacrifice. You're going to be generous. You're going to write a blank check of grace in that person's life, and they're not going to appreciate it. And they're not going to pay you back. And that's the cost of being good, being taken advantage of. You see, you can only be taken advantage of if you're keeping count. Let me say that again. You can only be taken advantage of if you're keeping count. Like, how much have I spent on this guy? A bottle of wine, some bandages, a donkey ride, hotel night, another hotel night, another hotel night. If you're keeping count and measuring, you'll feel like you've been taken. But when we stop, this is why I've never met a parent yet who was angry that their newborn baby didn't pay for diapers. Right? You didn't come home and go, oh, this kid is cute. Those diapers were like $50 for a package, I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, and you're not like on their first birthday, okay, hey, you're on your own, 1-year-old. We're celebrating, we got you a cake. Got to pull your weight right now. We're not doing that. In fact, if you're the parents of newborns and you're sitting here and you're thinking, I can't wait for that moment, I have news for you. It never comes. See, that was the laughter of the older people in the room. The younger people are like, no, This is a true story. Just this last week, one of my best friends, a pastor in another state, sent a few of us a picture, and he was online, and he was buying passes to Disney World. He was taking all of his kids and their spouses and their kids. 13 tickets. Oh. Right? Right? You're doing the math right now, aren't you? That's a lot of 13. And you know why he sent it to me? He was proud. He wasn't angry. I've seen that same story played out literally hundreds of times in the life of the people I encounter through Cape Cod Church and elsewhere. Why? Those are my kids, man. And my grandkids that are better than kids. That's grandparent laughter right there. Right? Yes. I love. And here's what Jesus is doing. Jesus knows this. He knows that this lawyer had a narrow view of who was in his family and who he needed to show love to. And so he says to him, I just want you to grow your definition of who you love. I want you to expand the parameters of family. I want you, and this is why it's so hard and it costs so much, because we're used to counting. And he says, I want you to stop counting and thinking about how you'll be taken advantage of. And I want you to go to the other side of the road, because all of us have someone in our lives right now who's on the other side. Man, listen, everyone in this room probably has somebody you would happily pay to take to Disney. But what Jesus is saying is, on the other side of the road, there are people, and there's someone in your life that you're struggling with. You're just twisted about, and when you're around them, it's a tension just to show them love. And he says, listen, I want you to bring them into that family. I want you to love them. That's what this looks like. That's what being good looks like. It's costly. So, Jesus, I think, has one more point he wants to make. And from here, he takes, and he departs from the story. He's finished telling the story of the man in the ditch and the priest and the Levite and the Samaritan. So he steps back from the story, and now he looks at this audience, all these people, and he looks at this lawyer who had come to put him on the spot. And now it's his turn. The man's tried to put Jesus on the spot, but now it's Jesus' turn. Jesus is like, turn the tables, and he's told this story, and he turns to him, and here's what he says. Verse 36, now, which of these three would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by the bandits? So there's my story. Who do you think was neighbor? Jesus asked. And the man replied, the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said, yes, now go and do the same. Did you catch that? Who was his neighbor? That guy. The one. It's a powerful omission. He can't even say the word that Jesus said. See, Jesus described the man as a Samaritan, and he clearly told his audience this was a despise. Like, this is the people you despise. And now this man can't say it. Just say it. This Samaritan. No, the one, that, the guy, that guy. Yeah, I get it. Do you feel the tension in this story? The one who went, yeah, I get it, Jesus. And there's like this, there's this tension. This man he's on trial. He thought Jesus was on trial, and now it's like he's on trial, and everybody's watching, and he thought he was going to make a point, and he thought he was going to settle this thing and earn some brownie points with his people and his crowd, and everybody was going to talk about him, and now Jesus has turned the table, and now Jesus is asking him to publicly declare that the Samaritan was the good one, and he can't. Why? His reputation is at risk. He's not ready to be done being part of the club. If he says the word, it just makes it worse. He's trying to save face. All right, the one, that guy, but he can't say the Samaritan. Can't do it. Reputation is a powerful thing. The threat of people and losing their approval like this man felt in the moment. You see, sometimes the cost of being good is the loss of reputation. Someone decides to leave, decides you no longer fit, you're no longer a part, and that loss is powerful. And for this man, he couldn't even say it. He couldn't even say the word because he's not ready to lose their approval. He's not ready to leave the group. He's not ready to join up with Jesus. He's not there yet. He can't be right. But listen, sometimes the cost of being good is the loss of reputation. Sometimes the cost of being good is someone is going to leave. But if they're leaving because you're living right, it's okay. If they're leaving because you're living right, it's okay. But boy, that moment is just, it feels like it's just got the weight of it on. Like, I'm not ready to let go of that. I'm not ready to let go of them. I need their approval. That group, those people, their favor, their applause, it sustained me. And I don't know how I'm going to do without it. Tammy and I were out at dinner at a new restaurant the other day and just trying it out, and it was just the two of us. It was a nice night out, and they brought the bread to the table, and it was good. It was good bread. I'm not going to tell you the names of restaurants, by the way, because they're all an hour wait right now, and if I find a good one, I just don't want anybody to know about it. I'll tell you in September when everybody else is gone, then I'll let you in on it. And we're sitting there, and so we had this conversation because we love bread, and we're like, which restaurant has, and we were like talking about, that one's got, I love their bread. That was our favorite, and theirs comes with that olive oil. That's my favorite. That's the number one, and that's number two, and this is three. This place is like 3 or 4 on the list. It was pretty good. And then the lady came to get the bread, to take it away. You know how they do, like they're coming, and have you ever like gotten there and there's like tension because there's a roll left? Now, if they come and they say, would you like some more? There's no tension there. That's like, bring it on, because it's free. That's the best part of it. It's free and it's filling, and man, just bring it on. But when they come and they're like, can I take this away? There's a moment of tension because you're not sure. You're like, I sort of want to hang on to that. Because it was good and it was filling me up. But you also know, like right underneath that, this is going to make room for what I really came for. See what I'm saying? Like, I know you want to hang on to it, but sometimes you got to let go of it because it's making room for what you really came for. They're tiny tables, folks. Cape Cod is full of tiny tables. It's not even fit for one person, and they sit four at it. There's no room for bread and your, chicken parm or ribeye or whatever you're getting. There's no room. Sometimes you just can't have both. I know what you're thinking. You're like, I just grab the roll and stick it on my plate when they're not looking. I just hold on to it. That ruins the illustration. You're not helping me here, folks. Here's all I'm saying is sometimes in that walk, to live well, to live right, to follow after Christ, it's the cost of losing approval, of applause, of reputation with a certain. But if that's the cost of living well and living right and following Christ, then that's okay. See, you were thinking the story of the Good Samaritan was easy, like, oh, we all get to pretend we're the Samaritan, and it's awesome. We feel good about ourselves, and then you get to the end of it, and it's like, Ben, I don't know if I can do that. I'll take my family to Disney, but I got to tell you, there's a few people in my life, they are hard to love. Can I switch the story as we wrap it up? You see, normally we read the story of the Good Samaritan, and rightly so, we read it and think of ourselves as the Samaritan. In fact, that in large part is what Jesus is saying. Go and do thou likewise. Be the Samaritan that's willing to pay the cost and go into the ditch. But in a larger sense, the Samaritan is a part of the whole story of the Bible. And in that story, you're not the Samaritan. See, in the great story of the Bible, God made us. He created us for a purpose. And then that purpose got twisted and broken. And our world just filled with the tension, the brokenness of all of that conflict. Sin. So God sends his Son, Jesus Christ, into the world. Jesus comes to the other side of the road to find you. And you, and you, and you, and you, and me. And you know what he did? He's like, I got this. I will pay whatever it costs to rescue you. And he did. See, that's the great story of the Bible. It's the story of what God is doing in this world, how Jesus came into this world, literally, as it says in John 10:10, to give us life that's physical and flourishing, the beautiful life that Britt was talking about, and life more abundantly, spiritual and physical. He loves us. That's what he came to do. So that we could have that moment by faith where we say yes to him. So as we finish today, I'd like to give you a chance to do that. Maybe you've been walking this journey, wrestling with the story and the person of Jesus and what God is doing in this world. And listen, this is the moment where it'd be easy to get distracted by other stuff and what's going on around you. But listen, here's what I want to say. If you've been walking this road and wrestling with this stuff and trying to figure out what God is doing, listen, don't complicate it. Don't complicate it. God sent his Son, Jesus Christ, into the world so that you and I could have life, and life more abundantly. And there comes a moment of faith where we say yes to that gift. And if this is your moment, I'd like to give you the chance to do it. Would you bow with me? Our heads are bowed and our eyes are closed. We do this most every week, but I know how hectic and busy life can get, and how easy it is to get distracted. But maybe in this moment, God has just been knocking at the door of your heart, and you're ready to say yes to him. He describes that as a moment of faith, a declaration, a prayer from your heart, inviting him in. He never forces himself on us. But you can open the door. So I invite you to pray this prayer of faith. God, you know me, and you know everything about me. I confess it all. And Jesus Christ, I trust in you and you alone as my Savior. I invite you into my life, and I ask you to help me to live my life fully for you. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much again for joining us today at Cape Cod Church. If you enjoyed today's message, check us out again next week or live online on Sunday mornings at both 9 and 11 a.m. EST as we continue our Outsiders series. Also, we here at Cape Cod Church are so excited to meet you and get to know you. So just fill out that Connect card down in the caption and someone from our church will reach out to you very soon. Lastly, share this message with a friend, and if you want to support us, leave a like or subscribe so you never miss out on a message. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.